against the purchase of 60% in 4 hotels. That 60% was or is owned by SSNIT, and the deal is to have it purchased by Rock City Hotels, which happens to be owned by the Agric Minister. So questions arise, but what are the answers? We're getting to them. We will be speaking with Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa, who has filed a petition with Shraj on this matter. But before that, the Executive Director for the Media Foundation for West Africa joins us. That's Sulemana Braimah. Sule, good morning to you. Thanks for your time. I wonder if perhaps there's a need to unmute the mic. Can you hear us, Sule? No. Okay. Let's work on fixing that connection once. Did I hear you there? Sule, are you there? No. We'll work on it. We'll work on connecting to Sulemana Braimah, who is the Executive Director of the Media Foundation for West Africa. But look, question after question has been raised in the petition itself. Okay, a few of the things that are being raised by Mr. Okudzeto-Ablakwa, first of all, is the issue of conflict of interest. Now, the suggestion is that there is a cure for this conflict if Article 95 is to be followed. Now, that what it says there is that any member of parliament seeking to engage in any such business, where there will be profit or emoluments, should seek the permission of the Speaker. The expectation is that this would cure that aspect of conflict of interest. And the accusation here is that Mr. Achampong has not done that. But we also got some education this morning that we might have to ask the question of whether a shareholder would be subject to the same rules. But that's only one of the issues raised there. Another issue raised has to do with the fact that there is a minority shareholder in one of the hotels, and that minority shareholder owning about 5% of Ridge Royal Hotel had an existing deal that they would be given first right of refusal if these shares that SSNIT is seeking to divest itself of were to come on the market, that they would have first refusal. They say that was not done. And in fact, that is perhaps the reason why the deal has been held up for so long. Otherwise, it would have been completed quite some time ago. So these are all issues that are being raised in the petition that Mr. Okudzeto-Ablakwa has filed. And we're still working hard to connect with Sulemana Braimah. And of course, we'll be speaking to Mr. Okudzeto-Ablakwa himself. We're also making overtures to reach Mr. Brian Achampong. We'll see if he's available and able to speak to these matters. That would also enhance the conversation. Ray.
The issues being raised, and let's be clear in our minds on this. This is not the first time the matter is coming up, neither for commentary or even for review. This matter, way back in 2019, when it appeared in the newspapers, SSNIT then said, we are following due process. We have not settled on anybody. We are working very hard to get somebody who will represent the interests of this country. Then those questions were raised. Questions about whether or not the right process will be followed, the right thing will be done, and this will not be another attempt to sell what belongs to the state to cronies of government and their relations. Right. Something that happens with governments when they are in power. Mm-hmm. They all of a sudden identify that there are state properties that ought to be sold, and there are family members who somehow got interested, and they get to be the ones who are being preferred in this case.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's see if we have connected with Sulemana Braimah. Can you hear me, Sule?
Yes, I can hear you, Kojo.
Oh, fantastic. We can hear you too. Good morning.
Good morning.
Right. Well, I mean, this matter needs no introduction. Everyone's talking about it. For you, where do the issues lie?
Well, for me, my principal concern that I am a SSNIT contributor. I have been contributing to SSNIT maybe for the last 2 decades. It is about my future. It is about the future of Ghanaian workers. I started contributing to SSNIT when I was a teacher. And I know the thousands of teachers in Ghana and the conditions they live in. and the fact that, you know, you have retirees or pensioners who are living as if they've never worked, all because sometimes, you know, the management of their pension schemes haven't gone the way they should go. I am wondering if SSNIT knows that they cannot manage some of these things, why do they even go into it in the first place? Now, it is not about just these hotels. Only yesterday we heard Nana Akonia on another network talking about other SSNIT facilities that had been sold. And it was basically to do this equalization thing that, oh, NDC folks are complaining, but here is a list of other facilities that have been sold previously to NDC politicians. And the question is that how we are playing with the future of SSNIT contributors, with the future of Ghanaian workers? Last year, we had the occasion to host an event at the World Trade Center. And it was at that point that I got to know that it's yet another SSNIT facility. And Kojo, I mean, it was so appalling to see some of the conditions, you know, in this edifice. Air conditioners not working. It was when we booked the facility that eventually certain things had to be installed to enable us, you know, have the event held there. And then I started asking, but who put, I mean, at this grand facility and left it in this state? And then I was being told, oh, well, SSNIT is involved. And so for me, the issue is not about, you know, Ablakwa, it's not about Brian, it's not about, it's for me, the future of Ghanaian workers. And what amazes me sometimes is the fact that if you look at the SSNIT board, you have representatives of organized labor. In fact, I think organized labor has the biggest representative, which is 3 people. Then you have, of course, the president's appointees as usual, and then, you know, folks from other sectors. And the governing board or the trustees are supposed to be the ones directing or giving policy directions to what SSNIT does. And so, you know, all this, what has been the representatives, what has been the position of the representatives of organized labor? I was reading that the TUC, for example, had sent in a caution to say, look, don't play cha-cha with our investments or our monies. But I know TUC has a representative there on the board. So is it that these things were being done, you know, without the knowledge of the trustees? Of course, somebody told me, well, a lot of them on the trustees now are retirees, and so sometimes maybe they wouldn't be so much bothered. I think the chairperson is Madam Elizabeth Ohene. Mm-hmm. And so the question that I ask is, what has been the position of the representatives of organized labor in this? Because as far as I can recall, it is one of the deputy secretary generals of the TUC who is representing the TUC on the board. So if TUC is now telling us don't play cha-cha with her, is it the case that their representative never briefed them about what is happening? I think we need transparency and we need to be clear about it, because as I said, it is about collective future.
Yeah. So if the problem lies with SSNIT, then what do you say to those who argue that, well, look, if they are failing to manage these facilities, then selling them is actually perhaps the best move forward? What do you say to those people?
Well, it could be an option, but again, we then need to be sure that while they are selling off these ones, they are not investing in other ones, because it is not the first time SSNIT is divesting its interest in some of these things after putting in millions of cedis into putting them up with the claim that, look, this is how we can best manage the resources for people, contributors for their future, and so on. So they will do this, and before you realize, they are into another investment. So if it is the case that we are saying, look, over the period, we've realized that you put in money into facility unable to manage, and before I even get there, I ask myself, it is a question of management. Why are we not talking about, let's say, we are bringing on board, experts to help us manage this, but instead to say we are selling? I think that is also raising.
I think we may have lost you there,
So
Sule.
how come? Can you hear me?
Yes, you're back. So can you make that last point again, please?
Yeah, so the last point I was making is, perhaps what is also quite intriguing, is the issue of the potential buyer. Mm-hmm. We are told that there were about some 14 or so bidders, and then in the end, it is the Rock City bid that really stood out. And that's quite, for me, a bit intriguing. And so that is also another thing that is raising a lot of questions. How come it ended up being a company owned by a minister of state that ended up being the one putting in the best of the best of bids, and eventually going to have this kind of deal? Well, it is good that Sraj is going into this matter, but overall, I think that we need a big conversation, major conversation about SSNIT and how our future is being managed. Because not too long ago, we heard about this report from ILO that it is possible that SSNIT may eventually be running out of, money to be able to pay out, pensions to people who retire from 2036. It was just reported, and it's almost like, brief conversations, and it went away. But I think that matters of people's pensions, matters related to workers' future, should be something that is quite important. And I think members of TUC should begin to be asking the Secretary General, who said yesterday that, look, we would not allow SSNIT to play cha-cha with our money, to ask, is it that your representatives on the board are not briefing you on what is happening, or they are basically there representing their own interests rather than the interests of the organizations that they represent? I think these are matters of significant concern, and we shouldn't just trivialize them. Basic conversations, 2 days, 3 days is gone. No. I think we need a bigger conversation about SSNIT and its activities, all the controversies around appointment and how somebody was dismissed and how somebody was appointed, and then we see a play out of a Japadia and all of that within the SSNIT scheme. I think we need a bigger conversation about our future. Otherwise, we should get to a point where we say, look, individuals should manage their own affairs and manage their own future. If we cannot trust the state to manage the future for the people, let individuals decide whether they want to make SSNIT contributions or not. Because for now, it is compulsory. We know institutions that are, sometimes prosecuted for failing to contribute, to pay the SSNIT contributions of their workers. So it is mandatory. And if it is mandatory, I must ensure that whatever I'm putting out there is properly being managed for my future, and not being used to buy V8 cars for directors generals, giving juicy deals to, members of the trustees, and so on and so forth. And then in the end, it is we, the poor ones, who end up suffering. I don't think that we have to go that route at all.
I want to thank you for your insights there. Sulemana Braimah is the Executive Director of the Media Foundation for West Africa. We're still working on our connection to Mr. Okudzeto Ablakwa. He's out of town, but we're seeking to connect electronically with him so we can hear his thoughts.
Could I agree with Suleiman at the point about workers' money? And you'd ask yourself that question because of the problematic investments of SSNIT. Sometimes you ask yourself, is it really worth it? Because this is where we are. We have said this morning that these hotels be run and profits made and paid to SSNIT. We have said this morning that if SSNIT SSNIT is not cash strapped. For SSNIT to say, I want to sell shares in a business. Look, Labadi Beach Hotel is not doing badly. Labadi Beach Hotel is doing well. So what money does SSNIT need? Okay, that SSNIT says, I'm going to sell these assets off.
Is Labadi listed on the stock exchange?
No.
If you want to raise equity, why don't you go there?
Exactly.
Go there.
Exactly. Why don't you go there?
Yes.
That's the share subscription we're talking about.
Yeah.
If you want to raise money.
Yeah.
But this is the other
and
way.
raise money. You think that you want to build further facilities? You want extensions? You want to recruit more cooks? You can go and raise the money there.
So what you'd actually do is that in raising money, you actually reduce your shareholding as SSNIT. But that does not go to SSNIT. It goes to the company, Golden Beach Hotels. So this is the point we're making. If we really want to help the hotels, this is the first thing we must do. The first thing we must do is to stop this president appointing people to everywhere.
That the person was unemployed, participated in the campaign. Then we are convinced that person can run a big
No,
hotel.
let's not jump to that step as if that is the reason they make the decision. Nobody is convinced that these people can run the hotel.
No, so that's
but
true.
they are appointed anyway.
Yeah.
Do you get it?
Yes.
It's not that after they've supported the campaign, suddenly some competence starts to show on their face,
No.
and so they are given these jobs. No, they are given these jobs as a reward, so they are not expected to go there and work. Let's be clear.
So this is my point. You must just get in place. Look, you can hand over all the hotels to a management company. That's how they do it. You hand the hotel over to a management company, and then what you do as SSNIT is to actually give them some capital as a loan, which they will repay.
And parameters,
And
specific ones.
Tell them,
Deliver,
I'm giving
2 years,
this
this,
amount of money.
yeah.
Pay me back in 3 years, 2 years with interest. Because you should have, as my subsidiary, you should be paying me management fees. Then you're coming to ask me for money. No. Take this money, now go this way. Then you give it to them. And we saw it with Labadi Beach Hotel. When the Legacy Group took over, we saw what they did. The Legacy Group also took over La Palm, Buzia, and Elmina Beach Resort. After the change in government, the contract was terminated. But for me, even that's not my problem. Get another person to manage it. Because we have shown as a people that everything that belongs to the state, we send cronies there and they mismanage it.
Yeah.
The next moment we say, oh, we must turn things around. And then we want to sell it to cronies again.
Yeah.
So it makes it seem like the mismanagement was deliberate.
It's a ploy.
Yes, if somebody was doing a good job, why did you come and terminate their contract?
Yeah, look, recently.
And now the hotels, the same hotels, are falling into disrepute.
You've seen, because they advertised here, you saw Carbank.
Yeah.
They were doing share subscription.
Yeah, that's
Come and
true.
take, you saw it. They advertised there, so I mentioned their name. You saw it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's public. Then you need capital. So what are they doing? They are offering new shares. They give it to the existing shareholders. You too, if you want, get involved. That's how you go about it. When you need money to run a business, you don't say that I'm selling my shares. This is somebody telling you, I don't want to have anything to do with you.
Absolutely. Like as if I'm absorbing myself 100%
Yes.
from it.
But-
Ojo, before Winston continues, because the board members were mentioned, permit me to list them.
But please list them,
Yes.
including the 4 members of organized labor.
Yes. Now, the board of trustees of the scheme, they have different representations from government, employers, and workers. First, there's a chairperson. There are 2 persons nominated by the president, one of whom is supposed to be a woman. There are 2 representatives of Ghana Employers Association. There are 4 representatives of organized labor. 1 representative of National Pensioners Association. And the 1 representative from the ministry responsible for finance, not below the rank of a director. And the 1 representative of the security services, who is not a member of the Ghana Armed Forces. There's the director general of the trust and the company secretary. Miss Elizabeth Akuya Ohene is the board chair.
Okay.
Dr. Emmanuel Edusa Akodie is representing Ghana Employers Association. Now, Mr. John Sananu Amegashi is representing organized labor. Mr. Joshua Ansa is representing organized labor. He's a big man at TUC. Dr. Evans Ageme Zikum is representing organized labor. Miss Ivy Betu Naso is also representing organized labor. Now, for SSNIT Pensioners Association, Benjamin Odote Asuman is the representative. Mr. Peter Osaidua is the president's nominee. Number 2 president's nominee is Mrs. Gloria Irene Amaki Paida. Now, the next one is Mrs. Abena Osayasare, Deputy Minister, Finance Ministry, now Minister of State at the Finance Ministry. Now, Mr. Kofi Bosompe Wasafmafo is Director General, we know that for sure. And Giptianan is the company secretary. If you look at the list, the people that the president appoints will be the perhaps Kofi Bosompem, the Director General, Abena Osayasare from the Ministry of Finance, then Irene Amaki Paida, who is a president's nominee. Then there is another president nominee being Peter Osaidua. So I've mentioned, say, the 4 who are directly appointed by the president. We can also add the board chair, which is fair. That Elizabeth Ohene is also
So that's
5
people.
Yes. Now,
labor or an organized.
labor has 4. Pensioners Association has 1. Then there's supposed to be 2 from the Employers Association, but I see only 1 name here, who is the Dr. Emmanuel Edusa Akodie. So, let me put them together.
So 6 union, if you
If
like,
the people
representatives.
If it is drilling down to mere votes decided, and everybody is supposed to partake in the voting here, there are more non-government directors of this particular board than government directors. There are
So why?
There are more important questions they should be answering, because TUC yesterday was saying, we told our representatives, they told them to stop it, but they didn't stop it. Who did they tell to stop it?
Indeed.
Did the board disregard the view of the 4 members of TUC? Did that view reflect in the Pensioners Association member to his view? How about that of the Employers Association? Were they of the view that this should be sold? If we do not drill down to this, then it's important we are doing this. People will hide behind, oh, we complained, and they still went ahead.
Can we do a right to information request for board minutes?
Yeah.
For the meetings where these decisions were made?
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's do that, okay? Because I'm certainly interested in who voted which way, who decided on what, who abstained, and all of that. Now, we have Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa joining us now. He's the MP for North Tong. He also happens to be the author of a petition that has been sent to Shiraj. This petition is raising several issues with this deal. Mr. Okudzeto Ablakwa, thank you so much for your time. I know it's very early where you are, probably about 5 a.m., isn't it?
Yes, you're right, Kojo. Good morning. How are you doing?
We're very well. Thank you so much for making the time. All right, so I think maybe first we'll let you walk us through, point by point, what your issues are with this deal.
Thank you very much. Regards to Winston and Raymond and all your listeners. So I want to begin by raising a fundamental objection I have, and I've held this view for many, many years. I take the view that public officials, particularly ministers, MPs, CEOs, MMDCs, I take the view that it is not acceptable. It is totally wrong. It is tantamount to conflict of interest to engage in the purchase of state assets, no matter how they are presented, no matter how they are couched. I take that view on the principled position that if you are in government, you have enormous influence, you have access to insider information and all of that. It does not serve the public good, and we should not encourage public officials to keep an eye on state assets and try to annex them for themselves. And Kojo, you will recall that 16 years ago, this is the position I took when I had information that the Honorable Jacob Echebelamte was purchasing his official bungalow.
Yes.
I dragged him to court. This matter traveled all the way to the Supreme Court. And 16 years on, I still take that view. So it is not a personal vendetta against the Honorable Champon, as some are making it look. It is nothing targeted at a particular person or party. I think that these are principles that all of us as politicians, no matter the party that you belong to or the ideology you subscribe to, we need to take conflict of interest seriously, and we need to remove ourselves of these deals that are not in the national interest. So let me come to the present case of the attempt to sell 6 hotels under SSNIT's investment portfolio. So I intercepted documents and then spoke to a number of whistleblowers within various government agencies. Let me put it that way. And they were all concerned about how our hotels, and these are, I say our hotels because these hotels belongs to all of us. These are hotels that were built decades ago by the contributions of workers. They are strategic assets. If you look at the value is always appreciating, because land, as you know, is always appreciated, particularly in these prime areas. I mean, we are talking about a hotel like Labadi Beach Hotel, which is one of our foremost beachfront hotels. It's probably the biggest beachfront hotel we have in Ghana. These are hotels that have enormous potential. Some of them are doing very, very well. If you look at Labadi Beach Hotels, for example, they paid dividends of 25 million last year.
Yeah.
The year before, 10 million. You take Ridge Royal Hotel. I have a copy of their annual financial performance review. Very healthy. If you look at their financials, a very profitable venture. So the principle, I do not agree with SSNIT when they say that they want to inject efficiency, they want to make the hotels profitable, and so they want to divest themselves of 60% and virtually sell their controlling shares to a different entity. What that means is that really, in terms of pensions, in terms of the future of Ghanaian workers, it is being shortchanged. So that policy decision, that rationale, doesn't make sense to me, and I'm sure many Ghanaians as well. And I'm glad that organized labor yesterday said that they are also opposed. And it is shocking that such a major decision, which involves hotels belonging to Ghanaian workers, workers groups, workers unions, organized labor, was not consulted. And you see, it raises issues about how policy formulation and policy implementation is done in our country. A few people, because these are national assets, state assets. They don't belong to you. It's not your private, property. You don't engage in broad-based consultations. Even we in Parliament, we were not involved in any way. We are not brought into the picture. No consultation. Organized labor is not consulted. And then they are going ahead with this deal. So we have to question the policy rationale. Then I come to the issues relating to due process. If you look at the way and manner they went about advertising and commencing the procurement processes, they treated all the hotels in the same way, painted all the hotels with the same brush. But that is wrong procedurally and legally, because if you look at the procedural matters, take Ridge Royal for example. Ridge Royal, SSNIT does not have 100% shares. There are minority shareholders. And if you look at the shareholders agreement signed in 1999, it is clear that before such major decisions are taken, there ought to be a shareholders meeting. There ought to be shareholders agreement, a board resolution. Because if you look at the board of directors, SSNIT has 3, VANEF has 2. There ought to be a board resolution. So one shareholder cannot unilaterally decide that I am going to sell and go ahead and advertise. So it is not surprising that lawyers of VANEF, the minority shareholder, have written to SSNIT protesting. And that is what has led SSNIT, indeed, that is what even delayed this process somewhat. Brian Champon will have had this long ago. So SSNIT has now belatedly written to the minority shareholders at Ridge Royal, asking them to exercise their first rights, valued at about $10.4 million. They gave them 45 days, which lapsed on the 12th of May. So you see clearly that there's a lot of arm twisting. You see a disregard for due process. And that is absolutely wrong. All of this builds into a certain agenda where it is apparent that the procurement processes are being skewed to favor a certain preferred outcome. Okay. Then I have also in the petition raised a constitutional issue. If you pay regard to Articles 78.3 and 98.2 of the 1992 Constitution,
okay,
ministers of state and members of parliament, if you want to hold an office of profit or you want to engage in business transactions of this nature, you need permission from the speaker. You must apply to the Committee on Members Holding Profit, understanding Order 224. And the speaker must grant you a certificate which approves of you holding that office of profit. Now, when you read the Constitution carefully, the reason why those provisions exist in our Constitution is to check conflict of interest. Is for Parliament's committee and the speaker to be satisfied that you are not going to engage in conflict of interest.
Yeah. You
are not going to take advantage of your oversight duties. Probably you're an MP, you see a bill come in, you see some business opportunity, you quickly want to go and register a company and position yourself in a way that you will take advantage because of the insider information you have. Or because as minister, you're in cabinet, you are going to be privy to some decisions, and so you want to engage in transactions that really gives you private gain,
right,
using the public office that you hold. So it's a very important provision in the Constitution.
Mr. Kujeto Ablakwa,
I have diligently, if I can just,
certainly
conclude on this.
Yeah,
I have diligently checked. I formally inquired from the clerk to this committee, and I have been given the list of all 47 MPs and ministers who apply to hold office of profit and to engage in business transactions. The Honorable Brian Champon is not on this list. So, right, once again, it is clear that he should not have been anywhere near this transaction. Right. And it's one of the grounds that I have submitted to Shraj, asking Shraj to abrogate this whole transaction, to stop it, and to make sure that these strategic state assets are preserved for the people of Ghana.
Right. I wanted to ask, we got some education earlier from Professor Abuchi, which suggested that perhaps that provision that requires an MP to seek the permission of the Speaker might not apply in the case of a shareholder. For example, if a member of Parliament is a shareholder in, say, MTN and wants to either buy some shares or sell some shares, that would not apply to them. What is your take on that?
Yes, so there have been instances where public officials will say that, I don't really have direct beneficial interest. I am not a director. I am not a majority shareholder and all of that. And so I have been conscious of those gray areas and decided to probe further and obtain the incorporation articles relating to Rock City. And I can confirm that I know on authority, based on the documentations I have, that the Honorable Brian Champon remains the sole beneficial owner of Rock City Hotel.
Okay.
And he remains a director. He has not relinquished his control and his interest in Rock City. So in this case, it will apply. Okay. Remember that in the case of the Honorable Ken Oforiatta, when he was dragged to Shraj, he said that he had relinquished and he had distanced himself from Databank.
I recall that.
In the case of Rock City, that has not been done.
Okay.
He's a sole beneficial owner, so he stands to benefit directly from the business activities of Rock City.